Good evening, Keepers of the Cash. Gary B, the Casual Comic Guy here, and joined this week, not as always as co-host, we have Chuck Hensey here. How you doing tonight, Chuck?
Doing great.
And my usual co-host is now in the reverse situation as guest. Rob, how you doing tonight, sir?
I'm happy. I'm excited. This
Yes,
is
your
fun.
second appearance as a guest on the 1011.
Yeah, this one was much easier.
Yeah. Your first one was pretty good, though. Everyone likes a good Star Wars theme.
Yeah, well, but this one was just fun. I picked a different theme this time. I wasn't sure what I was going to do in the last minute, and all of a sudden the theme hit me, and I was like, oh, let's run with this.
All right, well, you know what I like to do on this show, so why don't you give the quick 2 minutes on who you are, what you do, and then we'll say hi to the chat and get back to you.
Yeah, well, for anyone who doesn't know who I am, I'm Rob Fat Stax. I have a channel called Rob Fat Stax Comics, and basically I unbox videos, or I do videos of me unboxing shit stuff. Yeah, I unbox comics. That's 2/3 of the content. The other third of the content primarily is a show called Only Slabs, where I have a guest come on similar to this, and they show off some comics from their collection similar to this, only they're all slabbed comics. And my co-host and I have been doing that now for 120 something episodes. So
It's funny how quick it goes, isn't it?
yeah, it's been a while. But more importantly, right now, this time of year, I'm also one of the main community organizers for Comics Curing Cancer. You can follow us at Comics Curing Cancer down there, if you would please, on Instagram, where we work to raise money for the American Cancer Society, because cancer is the true supervillain, and together we can unite to actually make a difference. So this year's big event takes place October 20th through 22nd, and we're hoping to beat last year, where we raised $22,000 for the American Cancer Society. So,
And I have the same guest as I had last year on my show. I have lined up to repeat this year with more prizes.
phenomenal.
So we'll have Out of the Panel Comics back on with his daughter Zoe. We'll do it all again for our little part that we can add to you.
Cool. Yeah, and the nice thing about following at Comics Curing Cancer, not only do you get all the updates along the way, but you also start to see we'll start to, as we're getting donations in. I'm starting to take some of the pictures of some of the donations we're getting. You start to kind of see some of the stuff that will be available either as part of the auction or it'll be part of our wheel. Because the way that we work it is over the 3 days, the first 2 days will have a variety of different content spread across several different channels, and people who make donations through the American Cancer Society portal. It's not through some other weird independent thing. It goes right through the ACS, and any donation of $50 or more gets your name put into our thank you gift wheel. And then on Saturday night, we have 2 wheels. We spin a wheel, get a name of one of the donors. We spin another wheel of thank you gifts and match them up and send those things out, thanking folks for having participated. Then, of course, Sunday will be our main auction, where we'll have a whole bunch of big items up for grabs.
And I won one of those prizes last year.
Yeah. Lots of cool stuff. Everything from Funkos to comic books to signed books to key issues to free comic book pressings to gift cards for online shops, etc. So
very nice. All right, we'll look forward to that. Let's get to our chat. Las Cruces is the first in, as always. Good evening, Las Cruces. Hope Collector Kevin coming in just after him. Joe, Anachronic Comics, is here. And he's asking if you're only going to show Only Slabs. Good pun,
Nope.
Joe, but he's got some raw babies over there.
Yep.
We got Shop for Comics. How you doing, sir? We have Steve White in the audience. Good afternoon, Steve. Nice to see you, sir. Or good evening, I should say. Mark Andrews is here. Good evening, Mark. And we got our usual suspects lining up in the chat. It's good to see. And we have a whole lot of conversation going on between those three. Holy cow. We have DVH. Good evening, DVH. Nice to see you, sir. They're having a blast out there. Let's see. We have Brad from Wallboard. Nice to see you, Brad. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have Trev, the shipping guru. Nice to see you, Trev. Apparently, I'm tripping over my own words right now, so we'll try to clear that up.
It's the end of the day. That's our excuse.
Right?
That maybe the 7 shots of whiskey. Wait.
I'm always going to say it. One of my favorite people. Nice to see you, Jerry. And he's doing some great work on some comics right now. Go check out his channel. especially his
When is when
comics,
isn't he?
right? Adam's here, collecting with Durs. Nice to see you, Adam. Thanks for popping in, sir. And we are almost there. All right, and Kenneth Bird is here. Nice to see you, Kenneth. Well, these guys are having a great old time talking. All right, I think we are caught up for now.
Yeah.
Sensei Domino's in here. I missed him.
Domino.
Nice to see you, Sensei. And we are caught up for now. We will say hi as people come in. But for the moment, Rob, why don't you start us out, your first book, and let us know what your theme is, sir.
Yeah, so I was going through the books trying to figure out what I'm going to do, and I stumbled on the theme. I was going to say basically why my youth was flipping awesome is the theme. So the only thing, let's see, the biggest thing I think everybody loves to do is take some sort of liberty with your show, Gary. So my one liberty I'm taking with your show today is that I'm going to start with my one book with an extended story first. Then we'll do the 10, and then we'll do the spec pick at the end.
Let's do it.
So we're going to do the 110-1.
Gotcha.
So the first book with an extended story is going to be Star Wars #1. Now, I know last time I did an all Star Wars theme. This is the only Star Wars book I'm going to talk about, but there's a reason for it, as you'll see. Star Wars #1. This book, first of all, I picked this book up at a con with my sister, who we grew up Star Wars, fanatics is a light term. It was most of our childhood, from every birthday party Mom did through being basically somehow Star Wars themed, with her making cakes and construction paper hats and all these things that we could do in Star Wars theming. I remember seeing the movie at the drive-in theater with the metal box hanging from the window as Lucas intended. And everything, it just really became, not only was it so captivating to me, not only were like 90% of the toys that I had Star Wars toys, but became really so many things that I was interested in from there on. All throughout my youth, was very interested in space. Picking up Omni magazine and following the shuttles and all this stuff, and stuff was all basically pulled back to Star Wars, and how that just captivated me with what was going on. So this book is super meaningful to me. I bought it raw. I've had it slabbed, and then I cracked it 3 times now to get it triple signed. And never have I gotten a grade bump from the 9.0, and that's fine. It's
as long as it hasn't gone down any time.
No, it hasn't. It's been a 9.0 since the first grading all the way through the 3 subsequent gradings. So
now, who are the signatures, Rob?
The signatures on this one, this is Tom Palmer, Roy Thomas, and Howard Chaykin.
I was wondering if you had Chaykin.
Yeah.
And funny enough, like Howard Chaykin,
he's kind of gold.
Yeah, he does not like his art in that book.
Yeah, well, it's not about that sometimes, but
no.
Yeah.
But I just remember that, like Ken Wheaton telling me that Howard Chaykin just hates his art in that book because it wasn't his best work. But no, Star Wars is a memory for so many people. It started a lot of people down their geekdom.
Yeah, no, and it really is, and it's and it's talks about Lucas's use of some of these heroic arcs and stuff that are borrowed from mythology heavily, really allowed it to connect so strongly. And to this day, I was so thrilled with when my kids wanted to be into this. I joke, my sister claims all the time that it's my fault that she's into Star Wars, but I always say that she's more into Star Wars than I am. Right. She's the one who has been working on her own set of cosplay armor. She's the one who has multiple lightsabers. She's the it's like she's the one who keeps going to Star Wars land at Disney all the time. So yeah, she's just yeah.
Did you and your sister have paper towel lightsaber paper towel
gift wrapper tubes? Yeah,
nice.
And erector sets. Whatever you can fashion it into a laser sword. Yeah, we were down with that.
And I love that story about the birthdays because I remember my best friend's sixth birthday, where
Hmm.
his mother made him a Star Wars Spider-Man cake with licorice for all the black lines, and then he had lined up 10 Star Wars figures on the mantelpiece that his parents had gotten him,
Hmm.
and we were all jealous because there were 10 Star Wars figures there,
Yeah.
and we didn't even know there were 10 Star Wars figures, and much less that he had all of them, and so that's a real strong memory. And then we mummified them all and buried them in his backyard at one point or another. I'm not sure we found them again.
Yeah, no, I think the most recent thing was great was for my sister's birthday the other year. I found a place that was taking the action figures and putting them on repop cards, and you could have the cards customized. So I had gotten her a Princess Leia that was recarded and said, some, because she's a police chief, so like our badass bitch, or way to go, princess, something like that. Happy birthday, and give that and all these like special chocolates that were made in the shape of like Millennium Falcon stuff from a chocolatier and stuff. She just thought it was like the greatest thing ever. But Star Wars is huge for us. That's why I can't wait for tonight.
Does your sister do musicals by any chance?
Musicals?
Does your sister like musicals?
I don't believe so. No.
We got my daughter when Hamilton was very popular. Someone did a mock-up T-shirt of "Here Comes the General" with Leia as the general.
Oh, nice.
And and she absolutely loved it. So I didn't know that might be something.
The Family Guy parodies were fun too.
Yeah,
they were.
Now you were obviously an original trilogy guy, like all of us of our age.
Sure.
What are you a New Hope purist or Empire or Return?
So I like the mythos as a whole. I'm happy to tell people. Look, I'm a realist along with being a fanatic. In that I understand that rose tinted glasses make everything seem better than it really is. I can barely stay awake through A New Hope today because it is not because I've seen it 1,200,000 times, but because it's not as great of a film as I used to think it was. But that doesn't change that I like the mythos overall. There's a lot of things I dislike about Star Wars and the way that they go about they're doing stuff and having constantly retcon things and fill in the blanks and make people do homework. But at the same time, I still love the mythos overall, and it's what I grew up with. It was formative for my love of sci-fi.
Nice. All right, issue 2. Your first issue of your 10 now.
Right. Yeah. So again,
great storybook though.
Star Wars is great and everything, and then from that, a lot of people tried to copy and emulate that. So there was a TV show then that was super big. It was called Battlestar Galactica. This book just kind of ties into, again, my love of sci-fi and what, I was watching Battlestar Galactica. Again, another show that if you go back and sit down and try to watch it today, you might as well take a spoon out and gouge out your eyes because it's nowhere near as good as you remember. But I have fond memories nonetheless.
Yeah, but it's not but it's not as bad as I remember it either. So there's that too.
Yeah, the newer one was definitely better, although even it still had its thing. But I mean, I remember this was probably one of the few other toys I had early on. I remember vividly having a Cylon Raider and a Viper that was intermingled with my X-Wing and my TIE Fighter until Mom realized that I could shoot torpedoes out of it, and then those torpedoes were taken away. And then, oddly enough, the only thing I had left that still shot sometimes is for those of us that are old enough to remember putting together model kits. I had a Viper, a Colonial Viper model kit, and it also had a torpedo that was spring loaded that my mom forgot about. So that was like
I had the Cylon one that shot the torpedoes.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. So Battlestar Galactica.
And just another great cover on that too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Also in the 70s, relaunching, sticking with that, trying to capture that fascination that came with Star Wars. Another show came out that I know Gary was super into, and that was Buck Rogers. Now,
Oh yeah.
this obviously is not the comic book of the show from that era, but this is from 1942. So this is Buck Rogers issue number 4,
Just
but
a little
it's
before
still,
Gil Gerard.
yeah, or Aaron Gray.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any Dr. Theopolis in here. But
What about
hey,
Twiki?
but still, that show got me interested in that, which then later on would have me go back and fall in love with the Atomic Age sci-fi books and stuff that I collected, that people know that I'm into today. My love of bubble helmets and all that stuff. Go and I love watching the old serials. Like this when I went to Heroes Con, I was actually watching the whole plane out, the 4.5 hours of the Buster Crab Buck Rogers serial, and I was like, oh, I had no idea that in that Buck Rogers was a dirigible pilot, and suddenly, after being frozen in ice for 300 years, apparently flying a dirigible translates exactly to flying a rocket ship.
Right?
Because he didn't need any training or anything else, but
jumped right in, was an ace.
could tell Darlene, hey, go take a nap. I'll pilot this thing. And she says, okay.
But Buster Crab was in one of the Buck Rogers TV episodes where he's one of the fighter pilots too.
So. Oh, nice. A good way to work him in. Yeah. And he's from here. He's from the Bay Area where I'm at.
Now you remember, you see those memes all the time where it shows like a kid and like some beautiful woman in front of the kid is like, from this day on, like Jimmy didn't play with Legos anymore because he discovered women. That was like Aaron Gray for me when I was a kid. Once I saw Aaron Gray, it was all over. I was like, ooh.
The only thing that was odd was I never had any of the Starfighters or any of the toys from Buck Rogers for some reason. I see them all the time. And I think, wow, why didn't I have any of those? But I guess because I was too busy getting Star Wars and BSG. But anyways, so Buck Rogers, phenomenal.
Now, were you a fan of the old black and white serials?
I am now, yeah. I found a YouTube site that consolidates them all into single downloads, and I watch, the Buck Rogers, the Flash Gordons, the Black Hawks, the old Captain America's where he's a district attorney with a gun. The Shazam or
I love the Buck
Captain
Rogers
Marvel.
when you see the ship on the actual line. It's just so much fun.
The rocket ships were great, man. The special effects were awesome.
They are.
Get a couple little bearded lizards and zoom in real close. Oh my God, they're monsters.
Right. My father grew up going to see those in Maxon, North Carolina, because he said the movie theater was the only place there was air conditioned in the summer.
Yeah,
and so he would go there and he'd watch the serials all the time. So
yeah, and I watched a lot of the stuff that would air. Being a child of growing up in the 70s and 80s before cable television, there was a lot of independent stations. In the San Francisco Bay Area, I had probably 3 times as many stations as most people in America at that time had. I think I had 12 channels. But because we got channels, right? Because we got channels from San Francisco, from Oakland, and San Jose. You just had to rotate the antenna depending on what you were getting, right? And those independent stations would oftentimes have the Superman serials and some of these other serials and play them, and that was what you watched. It was great. All right, so that's 2. So book number 3.
Now, one second before we go forward, for everyone that's watching, because we have a crowd of our age that likes these old serials, tell everyone what the website is so it's recorded that you go and watch these on. So they also
it's Atomic Age Pictures. Is a site. They do a mix of Atomic Age Pictures does a mix of this old content that exists that they've consolidated down, and then they also do a lot of modern stuff where they do reshoots of stuff. Like they've been doing a bunch of stuff on Blade Runner stuff and some stuff, and they also do a lot of stuff where they get old cameras and do some classic like video pinups and stuff like that, where they do it in the style of the 50s and 60s. With Panavision and they get old film stock and stuff, and so there's a lot. It's a good mix of, if you're just a fan of that style of stuff, there's a lot of stuff there, but then there's also all these old serials there. So
And one of the things I like before we get to your book number 3 is all of these heroes today that never use guns. They all use guns in the black and white serials. Every
Yeah.
single one of them used a gun.
watching the old Captain America serials will really freaking drive you nuts. You're like, wait a second, what is this guy? He's just a DA, and why is he put it?
The
He's
Captain America
violating.
one's bad.
But
I
at
tried
least
watching
doesn't
it.
have a clear shield and rides a motorcycle. So
He rides a motorcycle. He doesn't have a shield. But he has a gun. But he's in doing his. He's a DA, and he's going off and doing his own investigations on the side as Captain America and interfering with
The judicial system and stuff.
right. Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty, and his assistant helps him. But anyway, so book number 3. So another series that came out that was inspired by Star Wars, or at least the series itself wasn't inspired by Star Wars, but how it was repackaged for America was meant to be inspired by the American kids, and that was Battle of the Planets,
which I've still never seen.
Oh,
really?
Yeah, I wonder if that's on Tubi.
I don't know.
I'm sure you can find. Yeah, I'm sure you can find that. That is gorgeous.
Yeah. So Battle of the Planets, was of course Gotcha Man was repackaged and reassembled with this robot and this other stuff to kind of be a little bit more Star Warsy and appeal to kids. And this was a lot of fun for me because one of the independent stations here, they would right after school, it was KTVU. Their KTVU Kids Club was all about you'd run home from school to catch blocks of kids programming. And one of the shows it would kick off with was Battle of the Planets. And I'd be super happy with that. And then it would also have a series of other Japanese import stuff. We had the Japanese Spider-Man and what I affectionately referred to as a series of man in giant rubber suit shows such as Ultraman and Johnny Sacco and his fighting robot and Space Giants and such like that. And this was awesome. Was watching this and play all these things. It was our Mighty Morphin Power Rangers before it was all that. So this was actually, Mark, I actually have that Alex Ross Battle of the Planets. I almost pulled it out. The problem is it's so foily. It just doesn't come out on a camera worth a darn, even if I take it out of the plastic. But yeah, Ultraman was great. I love these series that they've been doing. The Netflix
really
show,
well written.
Yeah, the Netflix Ultraman show that recently came out was kind of fun. This is our guy for fighting Gaiju, Ultraman.
Now, was that number 4 or just an add-on to 3?
No, that was the next book. Sorry, I just seamlessly transitioned because I put these books in a flow.
Right.
That's why we had to start off with Star Wars, the storybook.
5.
Number 5. Now, everything wasn't just Star Wars related, right? I mentioned that we did have that Japanese Spider-Man that was kind of cool. And of course, Spider-Man captured my imagination. We had the Electric Company Spider-Man. We had the reruns of the 60s. But for brand new for us, another big one for Gary was Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Was just, Iceman, Spider-Man, and Firestar living together in an apartment. Of course, all tricked out where the sofa could fold down and all that other contraptions to reveal their super base.
They couldn't afford their old place, but they had to set up in Aunt May's house.
That's right. Which ironically is very much what kind of became the face in Ultimate Comics Spider-Man when later on, when next thing you know, people are moving in and they're living with Aunt May and stuff. But
I love that show. And another one, you go back and watch it, you're like, wow. And you remember it being a lot more episodes than it was. It was only like 13 total episodes. Right. There was so much. And I've been a Firestar fan ever since. I got my own slab copy, plus I have the reprint raw.
And who didn't like playing with Legos? We had Legos and they weren't set up as kits. You actually built things using your imagination. If you didn't have a toy because mom wouldn't buy it for you, you built it out of Legos.
And no minifigures.
Well, we had some minifigures, but not like they have today.
that Spider-Man Amazing Friends series, you forget how many Marvel characters they brought into it. But this, the early X-Men you've got, I mean, albeit with, some of the, the bad power structure and whatnot, you had that episode with the 9 superheroes where you had Namor and like Doctor Strange and Shayna and, Sunfire's in there. I mean, just an incredible array of people they brought into that show.
Yeah.
Plus, they even battled Dracula for an episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was a fun episode. I think my favorite was the Hive. I mean, with the bee
Swarm?
guy was always funny. Swarm, that's it.
Yes.
All right. So 5 is all right. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, and now that one, I was like, that was a not miss for me every Saturday morning. Anything else could be on opposite it. I was watching that.
So the nice thing about this era, we were a little more innocent or naive or something, where it was okay for a young boy to go off with a strange old man in a motorhome with a motorcycle tied to the back of his RV and go about a place, because he could turn into Shazam. And old
Made
Captain
the van
Marvel,
less creepy.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It was kind of weird when you think about it as an adult, the premise and stuff, and but whatever. It was fun. It captured your imagination. I mean, I really wish that some of the only hard part about this, Gary, was cutting out certain things. Like, I didn't have a good. I didn't have like a Linda Carter or Wonder Woman or something here to include in all this stuff, but those are we had some of those things, like that Wonder Woman, the Shazam, the Incredible Hulk. We had some of those great superhero shows, or at least that laid the groundwork for our love for those things today as adults. And this would, run spin-offs, because they would introduce a character like Isis.
Mm-hmm.
This is
That's
a transitionary book.
Get right there.
This is a transitionary book, by the way, because now that brought me to the next book, which is Isis 1. Yes. Very good. You understand how that works, Gary. I'm glad that you're following along.
I'm jealous of the Isis books. Those are on my list. Those are
surprisingly, this is a pretty expensive book.
Yeah.
That this first appearance of Isis is more expensive as an 8.5 than this book is a 9.4.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It is. This first appearance of Isis is a much more valuable book in reality, but a great book. Whereas this one is worth almost nothing. But it's not about value; it's about awesome. And how awesome was this? Isis was, along with Wonder Woman, those were some of those, and Electra Woman and Dyna Girl, showing us at that time that superheroes weren't just guys doing stuff, and we didn't even think anything about the fact that they were women doing this stuff. It was just another superhero.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder, why are we so bent out about it today? I don't know. But
another thing about that era, that was one of the eras where they, for that little brief moment in time with Wonder Woman, Incredible Hulk, and those shows, where they were actually treating the material with some kind of respect.
No.
Before they hit the 80s and tried to make everything camp, like in the later 80s.
No.
But those are great, Rob. Those are, you got beautiful copies of them.
So we did. I was still growing up in the 80s, because I'm a Bronze Age kid. And so as we went into that Copper Age, we hit some of the greats that are really popular today, such as Transformers. Who didn't, of our age group, didn't love to run home and catch Transformers on TV? I mean, that GoBots were fine, but Transformers was where it was at, and you wanted to have these characters. And this was one of those toys that I wanted really bad, but my mom, for whatever reason, wouldn't let me have them. Star Wars was fine, but G.I. Joe and Transformers we weren't allowed to have because they were too violent somehow. But so this is one of those toys that I built out of Legos. I would build my own Optimus Prime or build my own stuff, and you'd have to, it was really challenging to figure out how to put your hinge pieces and how to make these things work. And they were nowhere near as cool as the actual toys, but it was what you had. Until I could finally go out shopping with my grandma one time and convince her that, oh yeah, I'd really like a Transformer. And would your mom let you have one? Oh, sure.
Of course you would.
Unfortunately, my parents were cheap and they got us GoBots and
Well, I had
Micronauts.
GoBots. I had some GoBots. We were allowed those because they didn't have like the. I don't know. My
She always
mom was
thought you were
really
going to
weird.
swallow something, huh?
You know what the reality is? In my mind, I may attribute it to violence or whatever else. Reality was probably came down to cost,
Yeah.
and I just wasn't aware of what things cost and what station my parents may or may not have been in being able to afford certain things, right? Because my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and my dad was a lowly foot patrol officer until he got injured on the force and then had to retire early, and then later on would do odd jobs, doing construction work and stuff here and there for long periods of time.
And that was one of those
Yeah.
series too where people started taking notice because I think it was kind of Scooby Doo before that, and then that series where you recognize the voice cast.
Yeah. But that was Transformers launched, was very successful as a cartoon, and other people wanted to scramble to get together their own toy lines, and cartoons factored as nice half-hour long commercials for those toys to get those kids to want to buy your toys. And so Mattel put together their own universe, and they came out with the Masters of the Universe. So
Nice.
here we have, not obviously I don't have the first appearance of He-Man, but this is the DC miniseries and in the Marvel series of Masters of the Universe.
I'm surprised you don't have that one, Rob.
Yeah, not yet.
Such a great cover with him and Superman.
It's pending an offer.
Oh,
See, those
So
are
maybe.
my brother's toys.
So
Those
maybe,
were the ones. Yeah, my younger brother had a whole set of the Masters of the Universe, and all of our kids have played with the Castle Grayskull, since then. So,
yeah, no, I had friends that had these, and what's really funny to me is when I was thinking about this not long ago, and I just don't see them. Is remember these came with comic books, and it's like I'm surprised with all the comic collecting and stuff that we see going on. I really don't see like those little mini comics anywhere. Like they all just disappeared. Nobody
and
held on to any.
They were much more mature too than the cartoon, the mini comics.
So you had the Masters of the Universe, and then that also, another similar toy line that got super popular was, of course, Thundercats.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and everyone always knows the song, right? Thundercats, Thundercats, go!
Right, and I don't know why they were fighting a mummy, but whatever. I always think of mummies and cats for some reason. Maybe it was Mumra was supposed to be a ball of twine, and they turned him into a mummy. I don't know, but for me, I know this came out just a little bit later. My younger brother was super into Thundercats. I was really more into Chitara than the rest of the Thundercats, but there you go.
What I hated I love those cartoons, but I hated the fact you always had to have the silly animal sidekick or the czar.
Right.
Just
Narf.
Yeah, we didn't have to have those guys, man.
Orgo and Snarf, and
For anyone curious about the Masters of the Universe mini comics, they actually released a collected edition, which you can buy on Amazon for $40 and under.
Yeah, but I'd just be really interested to know what does a good one of those mini comics go for in good condition? I wonder.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's only an eBay
Mark says that they're hard to find, but they run about $10 each. Interesting.
That's not bad.
No.
See, now if you want to buy a Masters of the Universe toy these days, you're paying $20 for the toy.
Yeah.
And that's just for plastic reprint. Distant cousin of right. Maybe that's where they got Tiger from. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, she was just the cat at first. But those are a great 10, Rob. And see, you hit a piece of nostalgia that is really, really dear to me, is that Saturday morning stuff. All those shows, except for Thundercats was a little after me. I didn't really watch Thundercats, but I was definitely watching Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers. I was watching Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. I was glued to Shazam and Isis, and also the Bigfoot show. I forgot what that was called.
That was part of the Cross Super Show.
So we got Senator Bruce saying Retro Rocket Comics has got a bunch of them in the shop.
You might need to give them the mini comics. You might need to hook up with them, Rob.
No Voltron. No, I wasn't a Voltron guy.
Oddly enough, neither was I.
Now,
Yeah.
did you like the Starbreakers? Not Starbreakers. Spaceship Yamato.
Yes.
Okay.
Star Blazers was
Star Blazers. Yes.
Star Blazers was a huge thing for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Star Blazers.
Now,
Do you have
when
any of
did
the comics?
I don't have any of their comics. That's why I didn't get pulled.
Yes.
Otherwise, it
Thank
would.
you, Tina.
But there were some other books, that didn't honorable mentions that got bounced from what got pulled with this. Was like I had some Lost in Space books that got bumped from this, and trying to remember what else. Well, there were other books, but it doesn't
Why
matter what.
didn't they ever do a Land of the Lost comic book?
Je ne sais quoi. I don't know.
That would have been great. I was big into Land of the Lost back then too.
Mm-hmm.
The Sleazoids and the...
I didn't say Voltron wasn't good. I just said it wasn't my deal, Matt. That's all.
Matt Woods. Well, I thought you had to go somewhere, Matt. Now you're in here picking on us.
Matt probably liked the Cars version of Ultron anyway, so we probably shouldn't.
Exactly, to the line.
It's all right.
And that was back then too. It was when Megatron was a gun. Before they nixed that.
Yeah, and they killed him off and made him Galvatron, so he was a cannon. Yeah. Good days.
I remember, because you could buy them and you just transfer it into a pistol.
Yep. And you could bring it to school back then and not get arrested.
Right.
Well,
yeah. Different world. Anyways, you ready for my spec pick now?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'll just run the show for you too while we're at it, Gary. Is that all right?
No, we were reminiscing. I wasn't trying to rush you, Rob.
No, that's true. Yeah, that's right. We're way ahead of schedule, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you were lost in nostalgia and going at a good clip. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, I know. I tend to do that. I'm all business. All right. So for my spec pick, keeping with my theme of why our time was cool and kind of tying into what's kind of popular, some of the stuff that's popular today. So we touched on like the Transformers. You guys touched upon the Voltron, all these different things. As a kid, one of my favorite toys to play with, I remember, and tying into all my Japanese stuff that I had, a good buddy of mine had these figures along with like these Godzillas and stuff, and it had these rocket fists and rocket shoulder missiles and stuff that would come off. And so everybody's spec pick really should be, they need a copy of the Shogun Warriors, because if you don't have a copy of the Shogun Warriors, well, then really are you living? Because I don't know what you're doing if you don't have a copy. It's like a phenomenal book you should absolutely have.
A 20-issue series. And
that's just number one.
Right.
Well,
and a 9.8.
Well, that's what I'm going to talk to you about, Rob. I have 4 copies. None of them are a 9.8. So if you have a 9.8 candidate, I'd be interested in buying one from you.
No, none of these are 9.8 candidates.
Okay.
These are all like 9.85 to 9.4s for the most part.
Because I got a 9.0 graded right here.
Yeah, no. It's not easy to find one in a 9.8. I've looked a lot.
The corners get dinged on those ones.
Yeah. And they were kids' books and stuff else, but these were just awesome. And the running joke is every time I go to a con, I will find one of these and I will pick one of these up. It is, shop. It's kind of like the same thing with Spider-Man 2099 for a long time. Although I'm not as active picking up copies of Spider-Man 2099 just because right now everybody else is kind of high on it. But the Shogun Warrior books, I pick these up for anywhere from $10 to $20 depending upon their condition on the these higher grade books. And so I'm super happy. The only thing is I try to avoid, like the con I was at this Sunday, one guy actually reached out to me, a seller, ahead of time, said, "Hey Rob, I found a couple Shogun Warrior number ones. I'm going to bring them to the show for you." And I said, "Great." And I went to his booth to go check them out. And he had 2 copies. And one of them was a Whitman variant instead. And I said, "Well, you can keep your Whitman. I'll just take the newsstands. Thanks."
And Rob, that whole series, it's full of robots and kaijus. It's fun. And there's an evil organization that is trying to thwart them throughout the whole thing. So that is a fun 20-issue run. It has ups and downs. It's inconsistent but glorious at the same time.
I just think that with everybody's love of Transformers, and we've had various robot, giant robot things like Pacific Rim, and also all this stuff. Eventually, somebody could come around and bank on Generation X nostalgia and these Godzilla movies and everything else. And why not put together a Shogun Warriors movie for on the cheap and see how it does? And when it does, guess who's going to be sitting pretty, baby, on Easy Street? Oh, yeah.
Well,
And
and Marvel incorporated a couple of villains they created in their Red Ronin and Vertigar into some of their Avengers titles. And I remember looking it up, going, where'd you get this giant robot thing? When I read it, I was, oh, you got it from Shogun Warriors. Of course you did.
in Fantastic Four, I think it was. I can't remember the issue number right now. That's where they ended the Shogun Warriors. They weren't in their bots for it, but they were helping the FF fight Red Ronin.
Yeah,
and that was the end of their story arc. But Rob, I mean, we're picking on the value of that book. Obviously, it's you can get it for $10 to $20 in high grade easy. But the toys themselves, the old toys, don't even look at them. Forget it. They're astronomical. You can't. You need a Swiss bank account with some laundered money.
Especially if it's a complete figure with the firing rocket fists or shoulder pauldrons or whatever. Right. Those are super expensive. It's why people ask me about things like certain things. What else would you collect if I had the space? Because I can throw money down the drain on comics or on something else just as easily. Toy robots is the thing I would love to be into. Not especially like the old tin wines and stuff from the 40s and the 50s and the stuff, but into the 70s, even into some of those plastic Japanese import, toy robot stuff. I would be all in on that stuff. But man, it really gets pricey for it to complete and everything else. And then I got to have space, and they take up a lot more space.
Those are big
in comics.
Yeah, they are. They're huge.
I can't own 10,000 robots, but I can own 10,000 comics easily.
Now, you know what they didn't make a lot of are, space people with bubble helmets for toys.
Oh, there were more.
I don't recall a lot of that. I could be wrong, but
there were anything. There was everything from, depending upon which era you're in, Gary. There was Fisher Price made stuff like that. G.I. Joe had action figures. I mean, I'm not even talking about their small action figures. I mean, like the full blown action figures. And there were various, there's Tom Corbett stuff, and there was toys for Lost in Space, and there was all these different things. And franchises had toys, especially in the 50s. The space race was so huge and captivated. You had the death of the Western, and the rise of the space race and space adventuring. That became stuff. There's a lot of toys that are out there that have that type of stuff. It's just they're not necessarily the same population.
Are you talking about like Captain Video, for example?
There's another one that you can get those serials on the Atomic Age pictures too.
So those are good. Those are fun serials now.
Now I'm going to throw a quick plug out here for any of you guys that like to see retro toys like that. A great channel to check out is Keep On Collecting. Andrew and Matthew, their Australian channel. Those guys have just an immense collection of 80s toys and retro toys, and they're always adding to their collection. And some of the stuff they show, you didn't even know they made toys for it, and you're just floored that there was this whole line, and these guys have them.
Well, I went to GalaxyCon one year here, and I didn't realize they made two toys for the Dune movie that was done in the 80s.
Yep.
And so now I want to go back, and of course I looked at the price of them. There's no way I was buying any of them.
But that's the thing, right? Retro nostalgia costs a lot of money these days.
There's a whole
the people buying it.
For me, but the biggest toy I had that had a lot of that was Lego. There was a whole back then we didn't have the kits today. Today's Legos replaced the Revel model kit and stuff like that, where you bought I bought a 57 Camaro or 57 Chevy, not a 57 Camaro, sorry. And you built that model with your dad or whatever and sniffed the glue and got all loopy. Today, that's what Legos are. Here's a kit, you build it and you set it on your shelf and you don't play with the damn thing. But back then, you had plane Legos, you had space Legos, you had medieval Legos, and they were just themed. And we had a ton of space Legos, and those figures had the bubble helmets, and you built the ships and the moon landers, and you even had the platforms that had little craters and stuff over them and stuff. And did lots of that stuff. I spent great time playing with all those space Legos. That was phenomenal.
And sometimes, Legos are taken, they're still taken seriously today, but sometimes you would have the teachers that would, at least where I was, they'd have the display of it set up. So that's how you knew if your teacher was extra nerdy. He'd have like the space set of the Lego set up. I had one teacher, you weren't allowed to touch it. He had a little glass case that you could look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But fun stuff. All right, Rob, great books, man. I love the Saturday morning cartoon theme and the TV superhero show theme and the serial theme.
That's why Generation X growing up was fun.
Right?
Exactly.
And we didn't have to put up with the censorship we have today. Today where,
Well, we could watch whatever we wanted because mom and dad weren't home half the time.
Right. Well, my parents didn't care what I watched.
But that was only really when you got up early in the morning and stuff, because otherwise we were outside playing. Get outside. It's sunny outside. Go outside. Don't come back home when the street lights come on. Or maybe come home for lunch. And that was about it.
And there was no censorship, but GI Joe couldn't hit anybody with their guns. Nobody. The fact they were all
nobody did, because that would be, you didn't want to have any violence. So it was, if they were shooting generally at each other, or everybody always parachuted out of their aircraft when it got shot, then everybody lived and there was no death in the show. Or the only time that somebody would die or get blown up or something, it was a robot or an android or something. And that's where a lot of the bats for G.I. Joe were created, was just so they could have mindless drones shot. And exactly.
Again, that was the Nancy Reagan era where you weren't allowed to have violence in the shows like that. And every show had to have a message. That's why you got the G.I. Joe message at the end. And right, the more you know, and the He-Man Masters of the Universe message at the end. And
Silverhawk's giving you the very bad science, space science.
Right.
Thank you, Matt. There you go, Matt. Of course.
And Phil's asking if you saw the Community G.I. Joe episode. If you know what Community is, that comedy TV show that was.
Oh, no, I didn't watch. I've actually never watched a single episode of the Community. Suddenly people's jaws drop and go, "What, Rob? You need to get on and watch Community." Yeah, well, there's lots of shows I need to supposedly watch, and I don't have time for it all. So
I know adulting sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's only so many hours. If I go watch Community, it means that's that much less hours I can spend watching you guys and your YouTube. So,
or playing with your books.
I don't play with my books, Gary. My books are serious business.
Oh, you play with your books. Don't lie to me, Rob.
I'll take you to the ISIS ones.
Rob's like gossiping with them all. Love them and hug them and keep them warm. What is that? Two dudes that are on YouTube 40 hours a week about adulting. There's our bitter YouTuber right there, Taylor Winder. Nobody does it better, folks.
I can complain about adulting. I'm still paying 2 tuitions, so
I feel that pain.
That was a great episode, dude. Thank you for all the nostalgia. That was great. We'll start wrapping it up, and Rob, you're the guest, and I always start with you anyway, even when you're co-hosting. What have you got coming up, sir?
Well, today is Tuesday, so Thursday, I will have my San Jose Con haul video. So I went to San Jose. I went to a local con here at a hotel, a Holiday Inn. So their little ballroom / business room, whatever. So it's not a huge con, but it was a great con. Unfortunately, there's no footage of the con itself because I brought my camera and went around recording everything, only didn't have an SD card loaded in the damn camera. But I do have a haul of books I picked up, including 2 tasty keys, as well as some other minor keys to share. And then Saturday, I have Only Slabs with Chris the Comic Vet will join me as my co-host as we welcome Efren from Past Point Comics to the show.
Nice.
And then Monday will be another mail call, and well, it won't be as monstrous as this Monday's mail call. It'll still have at least two more keys to add to the pile.
And
Oh, and if you haven't checked it out, this Monday's mail call was perhaps the biggest mail call I've ever released, and I've released some doozies this year. So,
yeah, Rob has not spared the buck this year.
yeah,
Stimulating the economy.
I don't know. I keep complaining about paying for tuition, but it doesn't seem to slow me down as much as it probably should.
He's just investing in the kids now, so they're worth more in the black market later.
It just means he's going to have even bigger hauls once they graduate. That's all it is.
Jeez, he's talking about when they're gone. I will be collecting 2s and 2 5s and 3 5s. Those kids, watch out, baby. We're upgrading.
Now, Chuck, you got anything coming up, sir?
Yeah, tomorrow Reggie's got a live stream, and he's got some people posing trivia questions for people. So he decided to pick one of the more trivial members of his entourage to come on. So I'll be on there with a couple of questions. And, I'm sure I will pop up with Joe on Anachronic Comics at some point in time. So that's what I've got coming up.
Nice.
Hey, Matt, so do I, brother. So do I.
Now, coming up for me this week, in 2 nights' time, we have Lady Fantastic on another episode of the 1011, a Thursday edition. All right, so it will be great to see Caroline and what she brings. Also super knowledgeable about books, and expect to see some X-Men. Then on the 29th, we have Dope Comics back on again for his second, the 1011. And then on the 31st, there's a special show. It is not a 1011, and it is not In the Hot Seat. It is a special reveal episode of a joint project between Madam Stephanie and I, and we're going to reveal that next Thursday. We're going to reveal a new character called Lucy, and where you can find this character, what this character is going to be on, and how it pertains to both of our channels. So tune in next Thursday for a big reveal of something we've been working on for about 4 months.
And don't plan on kicking the football, so just keep that in mind.
Exactly.
Right. But it's gonna be a fun episode. So we're gonna have some special guests on that are doing the reveal with us, that we are doing this project with. So tune in next Thursday to find out. And then that Saturday on the 2nd on Coffee and Cosplay, Stephanie will appear as Lucy again that morning in character, dressed as a character, and we'll have a fun episode. And of course, we know you guys all tune in for the shirtless shout out, so tune in to see who's getting shouted out that morning.
What are you doing? I'm averting my eyes, oh Lord.
Look at Phil. If Lucy's a Gary to wig and lipstick, I'll be disappointed. And yes, great books, Rob, again. And guys, thank you so much. We had a great audience turning out. You guys were having a blast in there. I was reading the comments. You guys were doing great. Thank you so much for tuning in and supporting these fine gents. Links are in the description below, so please sub everybody up.
At Comics Curing Cancer.
Watch Rob's Instagram and the link he put there, Comics Curing Cancer, for when that event's going to kick off and for the shows that he's going to involve in that. And as always, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're catching us on the rewind, we certainly appreciate it. And until next time, keep it casual.